So this is the Self-Development with Tactics book. So, today we're going to talk about NLP or Neuro-linguistic Programming, and we're going to talk about it as a summary from and you probably know this series for dummies, blah, blah, blah for dummies. And there's actually a summary on that, which seems to be quite interesting. And I thought, well, let's just actually read through it just because it is there for free as well. The link or that link to the summary is going to be down in the description. So if you want to check it out, please check it out, as well as just millions and trillions of other book summaries that are available on this site, whether it is about personal development, money, psychology, biographies, which I actually do have to check out. I gotta have to fucking check them out. Why haven't I? And but yeah, it's a pretty cool site. It's the bookbits.com site, or Best Book Bits. Yes, Best Book Bits. But anyway, it is also available as a podcast by them. So there's not gonna be any added bullshit as it is with my podcast. So check out the link, and everything is gonna be available there. So yeah. A book summary, what is in it for me? Develop intelligent communication skills. Talking is easy, communication is very hard. Successfully transferring via language what is in our head into the head of someone else is remarkably difficult. Indeed, as someone or as anyone who has ever tried to do this can tell you, effective communication is really the avoidance of miscommunication. Indeed, when attempting to communicate, people often either fail to listen, hearing only what they are prepared to hear, or fail to consider how they might sound to their interlocutor, making it much harder for their message to be received. Thankfully, Neuro-linguistic Programming or NLP can help. Starting off with recognizing that each person has a unique and different perception of the world, NLP offers tools that help you connect and understand the worldview of others, which is something that's incredibly important, especially when you're a marketer, for example, as well. In the summary, you will learn how a lemon changes depending on how it's perceived, what questions you can ask to better understand what other people experience, and how to establish strong connections and bonds with other people. Which all of these three things are incredibly important. Summary part 1. Neuro-linguistic programming, recognizing that everyone is different and aims to improve our moods or modes of communication. So what exactly is NLP? NLP, as it's commonly referred to, is the study of how we understand and experience the world around us. Let's start by looking at what everyone has in common. The 5 senses that we use to experience the world around us. That word includes our own body, the objects and people around us, as well as everything else that can be touched, heard, seen, tasted, and also smelled. This sensory information travels through our neurological system to the brain. Our perspective is unique to us because what we experience gets filtered by a number of things, including our personal values, social and cultural backgrounds, memories of past experiences, and so on. So no matter what you're experiencing, it is something that's very uniquely your experience, actually. A person's unique set of filters constitutes what is known as that person's internal representation, or IR. Perhaps you've had this experience or something similar to it. You and a friend go to a party at which you talk to the same people, listen to the same music, and eat the same food. Afterward, this friend starts talking about how unenjoyable the party was, though you had a fantastic time. Well, this is a classic example of a difference in IR. Your past experiences and personal proclivities primed you to find the evening enjoyable. Your friends, on the other hand, primed her to dislike the food and be bored by the conversation. An awareness that everyone lives according to their own set of filters is central to NLP, and with this understanding comes the belief that communication and understanding can be improved. So the aim of NLP is to help us become better prepared to communicate with, as well as more flexible in our understanding of others. Sounds good, right? In the book summary ahead, we'll look at some of the specific ways in which NLP attempts to improve communication, starting with how to establish good rapport, which is always important, by the way. Rapport, being known as a good person is and feels great. Summary part 2. Non-verbal communication along with matching and mirroring is key to establishing good rapport. If you've ever had a conversation with someone where words and ideas flowed easily and each of you was full of respect for the other, then you know what it means to have established rapport. Good rapport makes it much easier to communicate, so it's no wonder that researchers are keen to better understand this desirable quality. What researchers do know is that nonverbal communication is essential to good rapport. The importance of nonverbal communication has been understood since the 1960s when UCLA professor Albert Mehrabian identified the 3 elements of a face-to-face conversation: words, tone, and voice. Words, tone of voice, and nonverbal communication, such as hand gestures and facial expressions. But I do want to point out the tone of voice, of which I've also went through, I think, books and also a course. It's interesting how much this can do if you're communicating, because if I'm talking like this, I might sound a little bit more relaxed. I sound a little bit more just charismatic as well. But if I'm talking like this, then maybe I'm assumed to just be somebody that's full of energy, even though I'm the exact same person as just right before. And this is not really tone of voice, but maybe if I'm just speaking in this tone of voice, then it's different. No, but I think just in general, your voice and how you're dealing with voice, and of course words, what words you're using and which way you're using them can make you or just let you sound very intelligent and maybe even just very dumb, on the other hand. But of course, non-verbal communication also pretty fucking important, but definitely tone of voice. It is something I think that is really underrated, your tone of voice, and also speed and Professor Mehrabian, however, believed that nonverbal communication made up 55% of an effective, impactful conversation. He then listed tone of voice as making up 38% and the actual words of the conversation as having only 7% of the overall impact. Clearly, both nonverbal and verbal and nonverbal communication contribute to effective rapport and the ability to have a sincere and engrossing dialogue. So if you have a job interview coming up, don't keep your hands on your lap or in your pockets the entire time, or wave them about distractingly. While explaining your qualifications in a clear and confident voice, use calm gestures that punctuate your message and keep the conversation lively. Another way of establishing rapport is called matching and mirroring, which is all about finding the rhythm of the conversation and being in sync with the person you're talking to. This isn't just mimicking a person's gestures, it's picking up on how they're thinking and talking and deliberately matching their energy, thereby creating a naturally syncopated rhythm for the conversation, which also means using their words, using their structures, using their tone of voice, mirroring what they're doing, because we like people that are like us. And this is, by the way, also something that I'm doing when I'm texting with somebody. I just also sometimes use some words and I think, this is what he or she said before, so maybe I'm just going to use the same word, just going to be the same. I'm not going to talk in this way, but I'm going to talk in that way, because this other person is also talking that way. It's actually something that's very natural, kind of, at least to me. I do that, if I notice that somebody is not using the dialect that I'm normally speaking in German as much as I'm doing, then I'm gonna just not do that, because also I just don't want the other person not to understand me, since could be the case, but I don't know. Anyway, pay close attention to how the other person is breathing and moving and try to match their energy level as well as the speed and tone of their voice. When all of these things are in sync, you're sure to achieve good rapport and conduct an effective conversation. Summary part 3. The mind can form powerful links to positive and negative experiences which can be used to your advantage. It's never wise to underestimate the power of the human mind, so that's definitely the case. And one thing the mind is especially good at is creating links or anchors to moments and experiences in life that were particularly impactful. Sometimes it is a good thing, but these anchors can also be a nuisance, if they weigh us down with unwanted emotions and also reactions. You probably have a few smells that trigger happy memories for you, like a perfume or cologne that a loved one wore, and that when you smell it brings you back to a fun date or a first kiss. In this case, the smell is the anchor firmly set in your mind. But an anchor can also link you to a bad memory. You may have had an old flame that linked a particular brand of whiskey, and now whenever you catch a whiff of that whiskey, it takes you back to a night when you had a drunken argument that resulted in the relationship falling apart. Well, NLP offers a 3-step technique to create new positive anchors that can help you get through difficult situations. The first step is to think of the emotional state you want to be in. Happy, energetic, calm. Pick your ideal state and keep it in mind. The second step is to think of a moment from your past when you were in this state. Perhaps you feel it when you passed an important test or when your first child was born. Whatever it may be, hold on to that moment. The third and final step is to think of the second or to think of the sound or movement that you want to associate with this emotional state, or whatever the anchor should be, I assume. It could be anything from a certain Elvis Presley song to a certain hand gesture like a thumbs up. Once you have your anchor in place, you can put it to use at any time. If it is a happy emotion, you can use it whenever you're feeling down in the dumps. Just put on that Elvis tune, or give yourself a thumbs up and bring yourself back to the positive experience that it's anchored to. And I think it is an incredibly interesting and important thing if you think about it. Staying calm. And I do think that we're naturally also creating those anchors. And for example, always when I'm meditating, I am most often just sitting and I'm having closed my eyes. And this is probably an anchor. And I'm listening to something. This is probably also an anchor. It's not always the same thing, but it's very often is Seth Godin actually and his podcast, Akimbo, which is amazing. And this might definitely be an anchor for just being calm and rested and stuff like that. But of course, you can also, as just they point out, consciously do that. And I think it is an amazing thing, especially when it is something that you can do always, so that if you are in a stressful situation, that you're going to stay calm, that you're doing this particular thing and then you can stay calm. This is, I think, incredibly important for a person like me that is actually very angry from time to time and can really explode in certain situations. Meditation has helped quite, but I do think that maybe such an anchor could really do good to me. Summary part 4. The logical levels model can help you discover the right solutions to problems that may arise. Life comprises a wide variety of situations that we need to navigate, and some are more challenging than others. To help make sense of it all, NLP has identified 5 logical levels to help understand where in your life a challenge stems from: environment, behavior, capabilities and skills, beliefs and values, and identity. So let's say you're desperate to move to a new cubicle that isn't located right next to the man's room. This would fall in the environmental category. This is something that doesn't require an internal change on your part. It could be changed relatively easily by talking to a manager and getting approval to relocate. Now let's say you're in medical school and suddenly realize that you don't actually want to be a doctor. This reflects a whole different situation on that has to do with your beliefs and values. It is a more complicated internal dilemma. No matter the situation, there is a 3-step logical levels model that can help you to get to the bottom of things. The first step is naturally to recognize that there is a problem. Sometimes things happen gradually, such as growing distant in your relationship with a partner. So before it can be dealt with, you must first be in touch with the negative feeling that this had brought up or has brought up. The second step is asking the right questions to determine the cause of this problem and what logical level it represents. Is it an environmental problem? Maybe it started when you moved to a new neighborhood. Or is it a behavior problem? Maybe there is a third party involved. Or maybe it's a value problem and you and your partner want different things out of life. Finally, once you have pinned down the kind of change that needs to be made, you can take the appropriate action. Perhaps the problem was behavioral and spending too much time at work was driving you and your partner apart. One solution would be put a limit on the evenings spent at the office and to make time for nights out together at least twice a week. Summary part 5. The meta model helps you ask the right questions to get more meaning from your conversations. There's a good chance that you have struggled to find the right words to express yourself at one time or another. But according to NLP, there is more to expressing ourselves than just words. There are actually 3 processes going on when we describe an experience. These are deletion, generalization, and distortion. Deletion represents the fact that we are usually leaving certain things out when we are explaining ourselves. When on Monday morning, your coworker talks about his weekend, he might shrug and say he just went to see a movie that was half decent. Clearly, he did much more than just that. Yeah. Generalization refers to how we are often vague or unspecific in details and tend to extrapolate the outcome of one situation and apply them to another. A friend might explain that she performed poorly on her last test and that therefore she feels like a complete failure in general. This is obviously a rather wild extrapolation. Distortion means misinterpreting events around you. For example, if your boss doesn't greet you in the hallway and you immediately conclude that she hates you. It's clearly distortion. Your boss was probably just preoccupied. By being aware that these three processes color the way everyone, including yourself, describes experiences, you'll be much better equipped to understand and communicate with others. And a good way to clarify the description of others is by asking the right questions. Regarding deletion, get your coworker to be more specific by asking what else he did during the weekend and with whom. When it comes to generalization, ask questions that challenge the person's perspective. This way, your test failing friend will see that her tiny failure doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of things. By, for example, being like, well, didn't you just win the tournament last week or something? Then yeah, okay, yeah, you did. So no, you're not a failure. I think it is very important that people actually understand it themselves and just get to the conclusion themselves. When it comes to, and finally, to clarify distortion, you can open people up to a more realistic perspective by asking questions that expose their lack of genuine evidence. Like, how do you know your boss hates you? Everyone is unique, but we are also all human beings with many of the same traits that often interfere with clear communication. With the tools of neuro-linguistic programming, we can get closer to having effective, meaningful discussions. The key message in this book: neuro-linguistic programming is all about the way we experience life and the world around us. With the right awareness and the proper tools, we can make real progress in understanding what sets us apart and what unites us. Now, perhaps more than ever, we need to work at understanding each other and having productive discussions. Actionable advice: tell stories to build rapport. In trying to establish rapport, you might benefit from the tools of a good storytelling. People react differently to stories than they do to standard arguments, because a good story taps into memories and emotions. So if you're trying to win someone over, try telling them a story that illustrates your point. For instance, to get employees motivated, you could share a story of how your business began in a tiny dorm room and the battles you fought to grow it. This is the kind of tale that employees can connect with and be inspired with. And yeah, this is actually the end of the episode. I do really not want to say anything else. I just want to end this episode, because I don't want to fuck with the whole vibe of the video now. So thank you very much for being with me. It's been an amazing summary, and I think the talking and reading part of mine has also been quite good, so I'm happy about that as well. I wish you the best health, of happiness, and all success, and also hope that you're going to remind yourself and you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy, and basically means just being a nice person, then being remembered as a nice person on the other hand as well. 3 other questions that I have you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most as well? These 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea, which is pretty cool. One last question is: what could you specifically say to another person that is really indeed going to change their life, their worldview, how happy they are? Because I totally believe, whether it is a compliment or something else, that we all can say something that is going to change people. And yeah, with that being said, hopefully we're going to see you next time. Please stay healthy and safe. And I do also hope that that your family is healthy and safe. And yeah, I'm going to see you the next time. So bye-bye.